right, now it is easy to, let me continue on here. Now it's easy to see why the ruling blue bloods were said to have ruled by divine right. Remember your history books from high school where it said all the leaders of Europe ruled by divine right? Well, of course, it was the reptilian gods that gave them the divinity and right to rule. That's how it all worked. It is part of a long ago plan instituted by the reptilians to rule over planet Earth. The European royalty at the highest levels are shape-shifting reptilians. How about the United States? There is no throne in the United States. It is ruled over by Britain. However, most leaders in power are known in the United States are known to be shape-shifting reptilians. It is a matter of record that the President of the United States is often the blue blood of the purest lineage. For example, President George H.W. Bush was frequently seen shape-shifting in the Oval Office by staff members. Anyway, the bottom line is that modern-day Britain and the United States are recipients of the birthright promise to Jacob, the scepter promise to King David to rule over the people of Israel is fulfilled today by the line of kings, or as it is today, queens, ruling from England. All right, remember we had Queen Elizabeth I and II? All right, now they actually had power at that time. The power was very strong up until probably the end of the 1900s, and then it just started falling apart because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not fulfilling the Callum's will, and they're being chastised by the hands of man. All right, part of this throne is there is a so-called stone of destiny or stone of scone used as part of the coronation ceremony in London. Again, I quote Mr. Armstrong, "Another strange coincidence, or is it just coincidence, is that many kings in the history of Ireland, Scotland, and England have been coronated sitting over this stone, including the present queen." Now remember, this was written in 1967 by Mr. Armstrong. The stone rests today in Westminster Abbey in London, and the coronation chair is built over and around the stone. A sign beside it labels it Jacob's Pillar Stone. And how did Jacob's Pillar Stone from the Old Testament wind up in the coronation chair in London? Well, that's a long story, and Mr. Armstrong does a wonderful job of explaining it. But Jacob's Pillar Stone is because all these prophecies for the nation of Israel and the British and American peoples all was promised to Jacob. All right, now let me make a short break here. You're probably wondering at this point how David's throne survived the destruction and captivity of Israel and what happened to Israel and Judah from the Old Testament times. Perhaps a little more history is in order. This was kind of, I skipped over all this at the beginning, but after the Israelites were led out of Egypt by Moses and they went into the Promised Land, there came a point in time when there was a rift among the descendants of the children of Israel. The nation of Israel, back then, everything was called Israel. The nation broke up into two factions that warred against each other. One side was called the House of Judah and consisted of the three tribes of Levi, Benjamin, and Judah. The other tribes were united and called the House of Israel. They separated from each other. The House of Israel had 10 tribes and settled in the northern part of the Promised Land and had Samaria as its capital. The House of Judah settled to the south with Jerusalem as its capital. Both houses were at war against each other and were disobedient to God's laws. As the House of Israel in the north continued to break God's law, God finally intervened. Mr. Armstrong continues, Israel driven out and lost. In the years 721 to 718 BC, the house of Israel was conquered, and its people were soon driven out of their own land, out of their homes and cities, and carried captive to Assyria on the southern shores of the Caspian Sea. Now, for anybody in modern history, that is right where Iran is. Iran is on the southern border of the Caspian Sea. And then the house of Israel was lost from view. Therefore, the Eternal was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. The Eternal removed who? Israel. It is Israel which was removed and driven from the Eternal sight until they became lost from view. Who was left? Judah only the Jews. Israel was now gone. They became known as the Lost 10 Tribes and are so designated today. Gentiles replaced the house of Israel. Notice in 2 Kings 17, for the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam, which they did. They departed not from them, until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets. So was Israel, not Judah, not the Jews, carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day, and this was written in 620 BC. Observe that the people who had the national title Israel and the birthright promises, who were not the Jews, were carried away out of their own land, Samaria. They left that land, never yet to return. Note how the following verse of the same passage, and the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cutha and from Ava and from Hamath and from Sepharvaim and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. It is these foreigners who were living in the land of Samaria in the time of Christ and were called Samaritans in the gospel records. It is well to keep in mind, for the Samaritans of the New Testament were not in any sense a racial mixture with the Israelites. Only one individual, a priest, returned from among the captive Israelites to teach the newly planted Gentiles the corrupted religion of Israel. It's a long story, but Mr. Armstrong details how the house of Israel migrated over time to the north and west from where they were taken captive, settling in Britain, Germany, Scandinavia, Scotland, and Ireland, from where they were originally taken captive in modern-day Iran. And here's what happened to Israel. What about Judah and the throne of David? Mr. Armstrong continues, the history of the Bible records a line of kings, all descendants of David, and continuous dynasty down to King Zedekiah. But in the year 585 BC, this last recorded king ever to sit on the throne was captured by the armies of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. His eyes were put out. He was taken to Babylon and there died in a dungeon. Moreover, all his sons were slain. All the nobles of Judah who were not already in prison or enslaved at Babylon at the time were killed, so that none could remain to sit on the throne of David. The Chaldeans destroyed Jerusalem, burned the temple and the king's houses, took the Jews, the captive slave people, to Babylon. There is certainly no record of any king of the line of David ruling over Judah from that day to this. Continuing on, he says, but now notice an interesting fact. The last and final king recorded either in the Bible or secular history as having sat on the throne of David was King Zedekiah of Judah. Remember that name. Notice 2 Kings 24:18. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. By the way, I only got a page to go in case you guys are getting bored with all this. Notice briefly a description of the final tearing down and rooting out of this throne of David. In the 9th year of Zedekiah, king of Judah, in the 10th month came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and all his army against Jerusalem, and they besieged it. In the 11th year of Zedekiah, in the 4th month, the 9th day of the month, the city was broken up, and it came to pass that when Zedekiah the king of Judah saw them and all the men of war, that they fled. But the Chaldeans' army pursued after them and overtook Zedekiah in the plains of Jericho. And when they had taken him, they brought him up to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, to Riblah in the land of Hamath, where he gave judgment upon him. Then the king of Babylon, a really nice reptilian shapeshifter that he was, slew the sons of Zedekiah in Riblah before his eyes. Also the king of Babylon slew all the nobles of Judah. Moreover, he put out Zedekiah's eyes and bound him with chains to carry him to Babylon. In chapter 52, we find a word-for-word description of the same events with the added phase, and put him, Zedekiah, in prison till the day of his death. All right, these passages bring out these points. The king of Babylon slew all the sons of Zedekiah who were heirs to the throne of David. He also slew all the nobles of Judah, so there was no possible heirs for that throne. Finally, after putting out Zedekiah's eyes, the king who sat on David's throne was himself taken to Babylon, where he died in prison. Thus, as it appears, and as the whole world has believed, the throne of David ceased with no possible heirs or sons to keep the dynasty alive. Certain it is that from that day on, the throne never again existed in Judah, in Jerusalem, or among the Jews. Mr. Armstrong goes on to show how Jeremiah the prophet was commissioned by God to take the daughters of Zedekiah to Ireland, and he shows how they married into the royalty in Ireland and continued the throne of David in Ireland through the daughters of Zedekiah. The Bible speaks of how the throne of David was overturned 3 times. It went from Judah to Ireland, from Ireland to Scotland, and finally to England, where it remains today. All right, now let me put all this in perspective. So this will connect some more of the dots. And this, I'd like to quote Duane the Great Writer from his book, The Secret Knowledge Beyond the Gods of Man. He says, unfortunately today, because this world is more business-minded than interested in any degree of real truth, the existing rep systems, religious, educational, political, and social, do not want anything to do with anything real, as it would surely interfere with their plans and goals of controlling and dominating all of their unaware supporters. The rep systems do their darndest to keep the public confused and downright stupid because they do not want to be exposed for what they are really doing. And on the whole, most people are willing to stay in the dark because they want their comfort life to be uninterrupted. So they will take a beating from the rep systems, and also by the very fact they have been intimidated with fear for lifetimes, so they do not want to rock the boat. Even with all the conspiracies going on today, it is not a matter of any form of rebellion, as one becomes aware of all the misdeeds, as these people who play their power games will have to deal with the lords of karma, but it's simply a matter of becoming more aware and learning to travel the endless universes of real freedom. All right, end of quote. So once you become aware that the reptilians plan religions like the Bible for centuries, it should not be surprising that they control every single aspect of all religions on earth, all governments, all educational systems, and social systems. I hope this has helped you to understand that it is now time to exit stage right and become aware of the real side of life and the all is. Thank you.
Wow, fantastic.
If anybody would like to add anything, any comments or anything about all this?
Well, about my only comment is...
I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
That's okay. I was just going to say, enter the Great Awakening, people finding out who they are as opposed to what they've been led to believe they are. And that's something of a different step most people are having difficulty with, but it's okay, because these are the very things that come up in an individual's course to give them a deeper understanding about where they might have been and what part they might have played in all this, and what they need to do at the present moment, because that's where we're at. We're in what do I do now, not what I do yesterday or tomorrow. So.
Well,
yeah,
Camille,
I just wanted.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to chime in. Thank you for that, Bob. And I'm listening up here, and it's really interesting. So thank you for sharing this.
Who would have ever thought that the throne and all the kings, of England and the United States are all part of biblical prophecy. And that the Kalam God is behind every bit of it. And the whole idea of the thrones is to rule over the people of Israel. That was the whole idea. And the whole idea of when Christ returns, ruling with him over the peoples on earth, the whole thing is a scam. It won't get you anywhere. It'll just keep you in endless cycles of reincarnation. And
can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you come to any revelation about where you might have been in all of these different scenarios that we're talking about here, like some particular spot that you took part in?
It wouldn't surprise me if I took part in a lot of them, but I don't have any past life recall on them. Is that what you're referring to, past life recalls on it? I'm not sure. Could you rephrase the question? Okay, I lost you there. Are you back? And I see a couple of people got kicked out here. Anyway.
Okay. Maybe he got kicked off.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's when you look at the United States and you see a church on every corner, there's in every little town across the United States, if there's a bar, there's a church. I mean, they're everywhere. The Kalam God has done a fantastic job of putting people and focusing their attention on something that has absolutely no meaning whatsoever for the all of life. It is such a fantastic network that they have construed on this planet. I mean, it's almost unbelievable how they've been able to perpetrate such a fraud on the people on Earth. And that's why it's important to understand that they're into everything. They control every aspect of everything, the educational, the governments, the religions. And that's why it's so important to sing New You, and contact the real guides and find out what's real.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, any other questions? We're coming up on an hour now, so... Well, if that's it, I don't know the names of everybody on the program, but why don't we end the program by saying everybody singing New You all together, and then we'll call it a show. So if everybody's ready, on the count of 3, everybody sing New You, and we'll talk to you next time. All right, 1, 2, 3. New You. Well, thank you, everybody.
All right, Bob. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.